15 minutes each on what they were like, what happened, and what they're like now. But first, we would like to invite anyone in their first year who celebrated an A milestone this month and would like to share with us your sobriety date, your sponsor is, and the name of your home group to come up to the front of the room, form in a line to the side of the podium. Anyone celebrating 11 months of sobriety this month, you may come up now and start forming a line. 10 months. 9 months. 8. 7. 6. 5 months. 4 months. 3 months. 2 months. Would you please each come to the podium and state clearly your sobriety date, who your sponsor is, and the name of your home group?
I'm Jerry. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is February 19th, 2018. Carrie's my sponsor, and New Horizon is my home group.
I'm Kirsten, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is April 18th, 2018. My home group is Three Legacies, and my sponsor is Carrie.
I'm Taryn, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is April 27th, 2018. My sponsor is Chris, and my home group is WFS.
My name is Larry. I'm alcoholic. My sobriety date is April 24th this year, and my home group is Three Legacies, and my sponsor is Jeremy B.
My name is Liddell. My sobriety date is June 21st, 2018. My sponsor is Jared.
The tokens that were just given out have holes in them to go on a keychain. So you carry a break to choose your special sobriety keychain to put your coin on. Please join me in welcoming our first birthday speaker tonight from the Stepsisters group celebrating 27 years of sobriety, Linda T.
Thank you for letting me share tonight. I have to correct, and I just got an extra year. I'm only 26 years. But I'm hoping for that.
Rigorous on.
Yeah, I'm hoping to continue. My sobriety date is August 3rd, 1992. My home group is Stepsisters, and my sponsor is Jane. And I'm pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be here because if I hadn't found this place and people like all of you, I wouldn't be anywhere. I didn't drink really heavily until maybe the last 9 years before I got sober. And I can give you a good reason why I didn't do it before that. But it took me pretty fast. I was always a blackout drinker, so I'm not going to go through a bunch of drunk stories, mainly because they're word of mouth. I do not remember most of them. What I hear needs to be kept secret. But what happened, what it was like, and what it's like now. I was the only child born into a family that was a little different, as we all think they are. I've never met a functional family, really. My father was a rager, a bully, and an abuser. My mother was, oh, I'm sorry. My mother, hello, loved prescription drugs because if they came from a doctor, that was okay. And I think back at that time, a lot of people thought that way. You know, if it was a pill, it wasn't bad. And we know what that is. I remember being very, like, first grade, and my mother had this little box, and she put aspirin and for me to take to school in case I needed something. Because the lesson in my family was you always needed something outside you to make you okay, whatever that may be. It could be a Boston green pie, it could be a cup of coffee, it could be screaming and yelling, but it was always something outside of us. Needless to say, as I've heard many times, I felt that I didn't get the love or acceptance or approval that I craved because my parents couldn't give it to me. My mother tried her best, but I spent a lot of time protecting her. We were kind of hostages. And long story short, I've heard it from a lot of people in meetings, speaking, and also individually, that we chase that thing, that negative thing, that wanting that love, that approval, all our lives. And finding alcohol, because I felt I never fit in. Never. I mean, it was because we traveled all the time. My dad was in the State Department. I went to school in Europe, then we'd come back to the United States, and you have to go to school here, and you don't fit in, and you don't fit, it's like, I don't fit. I was the only child in most of the places I ever lived, which was another stigma that I thought, because I just wanted to be like everybody else. I had my first drink at 12, went to a friend's house, and got into, I think it was Boone's Farm. It was alcohol. And the idea, just the sound of the name makes me creep out, but it did for me what nothing else ever had, that moment of the little click, and I felt great. I have no recollection of walking 2 blocks home. I have no recollection of going in my house or was anyone there. No clue. I did wake up in my bed, puke all over, just the bedroom was a mess and stunk like an old bar room. Still, no one said anything to me. I washed my clothes and, it was like, I was invisible, and I still do not remember anything about that. Was there consequences? No clue. All I knew was the adults had something with this alcohol thing. Because I never really realized, my parents would have people over and they'd have cocktails and you could take a sip, and it never tasted good, so I didn't figure out why they liked it until after the Boone's Farm. And anytime I could after that, which wasn't too often, I wanted to feel that way again. And I was reaching for something outside me. And we had a religious background, not real strict, but, it is kind of strict, I guess, because, there's the big guy and you say the right stuff and do the right things, and you might get accepted. So that was kind of the way I thought about the whole deal, because I figured I was, negative at the gate, shall we say. I was never going to be good enough, because I was always told that. When I was 11, I remember my father saying to me, "Linda, if you ever did anything right, I'd be the most surprised man in the world." And how funny that something like that sticks with you versus, good things that other people had said, teachers, my grandmothers were wonderful people and all of the above. But what, fast forward, I wanted out of the house as soon as I could. I tried to do everything right. Good grades in school, didn't cause any trouble. So I was, earmarked to go to college and all of that. And I met this person who was 30 years old, and I was 17. And I thought he was going to rescue me. And he kind of did for a little bit. I married him. My father said, yeah, it's great. He didn't want me to run off with some hippie. I think so. It was the 70s. And so that should have been my first clue. My father liked him. What the heck? But, he impressed me at the big car in the penthouse and took me out for dinner, and they brought the flaming sword things with the meat. I mean, it was the whole move. But what I found is that I had married my father. He was another rager, bullier, abuser. It took me a long time to get out of that marriage because, and you may have experienced it yourself, where people that do that to others have a way of breaking them down so they believe the negative input. So they believe you can't function without them. You believe all this stuff, which is why it took me a long time to say, I'm leaving and I'm staying. I left in the last year of marriage. I ran away 8 times. And I had offers from friends to, we could kill them and drag them in the ocean and all that. I still regret that I didn't try that. But I have a friend who says no jury of your peers would have ever convicted you. But anyway, saved me from that. That's when my dream took off. I worked at San Francisco Airport. It was the 80s. It was Party Central. Everyone knew everyone. It was like a small city. There were about 30,000 employees, 40,000, not counting maintenance. Everybody knew everybody. And it was a great time. It really was. The jobs aren't like that anymore, but boy, was it. We did our work. We worked hard. We were paid very well. And we partied like crazy animals. You'd get off work, change clothes, go to the city, do the nightclubs, crawl home, and get, you could always make it to work by 3 p.m. So it was a perfect schedule for a long, long time. And it was a lot of fun in a lot of ways. I'm not going to ever deny that some of this was fun. I just took it to extremes. And it got extremer and extremer. And eventually it became the focus. It wasn't the fun of the party. It was the, when are we going to get some booze? And I worked other jobs at the same time. I taught up at the college there. So I did that in the evening, and then I worked on graveyards when I'd go to work. And I don't know how in God's name I did it all and did it drunk. I had no idea. They didn't drug test and drink, they didn't test a lot back then, which is interesting. So it progressed as the disease will progress. My blackout drink came, again, I always had to worry when I woke up in the morning. First of all, where am I? Where's my car? Or who's there? And the other question was wait for the phone to ring so someone would tell me what I did or what I said. So that was always a bit of a fear thing in the morning. And this went on, and this went on, and this went on. And I entered into a lot of other relationships, none good for me. I had a long-term relationship with my boss, who also had a long-term relationship with his wife. And I need to elaborate. And when that ended, I went down the tubes big time, because it's all fun until you get emotionally involved. And that's when it took off. Big time, took off. And I was a daily drinker, but this was a daily drunker. It still amazes me how I could work and handle all this, because I know I couldn't do it now. It's a good thing I was in my early 30s when I came in, because it it does stuff to your body. And I felt something, I don't know why, but after that relationship broke up, I realized the people I was around all the time, you know, I always hung out with people that had bigger problems, so I could just be the drunk. But we all had our problems, and my roommate at the time sent me the big book, and I threw it in the closet. I had a boyfriend who needed intervention, so I went to find out about that, and I read the 20 questions and threw that away. So, I came in, not court-ordered, not through treatment. I came in, I sat down, and for the very first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. I don't know why. I didn't know a soul in the room. I was sober 23 days. And my roommate was there. She was visiting for a wedding. And all the heads turned when you announce, you know, is there anyone who want to announce that they're an alcoholic? And they all looked at me side-eyed or say something. So I did. And it was like the cover came off my cage. So there it was, 26 years ago. I've learned more in the last 26 years, developed more friendships in the last 26 years. Had ups and downs. None of those things would have been experienced if it wasn't for this program, my higher power, that I also learned I could create my own. I had a guilt about that at first, because I didn't think that was okay with the guy in the ropes. But I can have my own higher power, and it's gotten me here. I have a little something I want to read from the big book, which every time I read the 164 pages, I hear something different. It's like somebody rewrites the book when it's closed. Some of our alcoholic readers may think that they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. Is there no exception? Yes, there is, replied the doctor. Exceptions to such cases as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what we call a vital spiritual experience. To me, these occurrences are phenomenal. They do appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangement. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men and are suddenly cast to one side, and completely a new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I have been trying to produce some such emotional arrangements within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employ are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. So, that's enough for me to know that without seeking a spiritual state of peace, a spiritual connection of my own understanding, meditation helps. And conscious contact with whatever you have as a higher power is what keeps me here and has brought me to this night standing before all of you. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. We will now take a brief 10-minute break to welcome new people and have some birthday cake. If you want to take your seats, please. To resume the meeting again, please join me in a moment of silence followed by the Serenity Prayer. join me in welcoming our next birthday speaker tonight from the New Horizon Group, celebrating 29 years, Kail.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kail, and I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is August 12th, 1989, and New Horizon is my home group. I want to tell you about my tie, first of all. Normally, when I speak at a meeting, I have a tie that I've worn for years and years, and it has a picture of all of the Warner Brothers cartoon characters on it. Yosemite Sam, Daffy Duck, Tweety Bird, Sylvester, and each one of those pictures was really a part of my personality. I don't wear it anymore. It's old and worn out. But I have a new one that my wife got for me, and it has hundreds of little pictures of Goofy on it. Because when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I was an insane human being, more animal than human, really. And through the process of the 12 steps, I was relieved of that insanity, and I just became a little crazy. And around 10 years of sobriety, my sponsor told me that I had graduated from insane and crazy, and he says, now you're just a little goofy. And I advise you to stay that way. And I have. I like being goofy. I like having fun. I really took Rule 62 to heart. I just do not take myself too damn seriously at all. And when I do, my wife lets me know. And she ought to know. We've been together for a very long time. And, I didn't start drinking at a young age like a lot of folks that I know. The day after my 13th birthday, on my 13th birthday, I celebrated my bar mitzvah. The day after, I was introduced to my future bride. And she was known in the community as Horseface Harriet. And I was to be, when I turned 18, I started rabbinical school the day after my birthday, and I was to become a rabbi. And the closer I got to being 18 years of age, the more concerned I got about marrying Harriet. And I really didn't want to be a rabbi. I really didn't. But I was 6 months away from both of those things. And my mother's sister, my wonderful, wonderful Aunt Florence, broke a bunch of federal laws. And she took me down to Los Angeles, California, and forged my mother's name so I could join the Marine Corps and get away from the family. And that's what. And my mother was very upset about that. And we argued about it a lot. But the final straw was when 19, almost 20, I married a Mexican Catholic girl. My mother's response to that was to have me declared dead. And if you go to Israel and you go to Haifa, there's a cemetery on the side of the hill, and you'll find my headstone. I got even with Mom. For 32 years, I sent her a 5-pound canned ham every Passover. My sponsor told me at one point that if I wanted to repair the past, I really needed to stop sending those cans. But my drinking started because of the perceived wrong done to me, and I perceived that wrong was done to me by God. When I was over Vietnam, I had gotten wounded, and I really shouldn't call it wounded. I got like 4 or 5 little pieces of shrapnel in my right buttock. And I was in this aid station, and this nurse was plucking these little pieces of shrapnel out of my butt with a pair of tweezers. And she made the mistake of telling me I had a cute butt. So I fell in love. And we started hanging out together a lot. And in 1968, during the Tet Offensive, she was killed in a rocket attack on the right. And I didn't know what to do. I'd never lost anybody. I never knew anybody that had died. I didn't know how to react to it. But I remembered from reading books and seeing movies that, every time there was a tragedy in somebody's life, there always seemed to be some clown that would show up and say, here, drink this, it'll make you feel better. So I thought that's what an adult did. So I went in search of a drink. And I found this little bar that the Seabees had constructed out of old oil drums. It had a wood plank and a dirt floor. And I ordered a beer. They didn't really have beer. It came in a can, it looked like an oil can. It was called Bobby Maw. And I took one sip of it, couldn't swallow it. I spit it out on the floor. And this guy sitting next to me was chuckling. He says, "I know exactly what you mean." And he slid me over a martini, a vodka martini. And oh my goodness, was that thing good. You know, and I had a couple of those, and I found myself laughing at jokes that people were telling. And I had a couple more, and I started telling jokes. And I have no idea how many I had that night. I had a blackout. And I came to the next morning, and feeling really, really crappy. And that same fellow was giggling in the same way and said, "I know exactly how you feel," and he gave me another martini. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I had my first drink, my first drunk, my first blackout, my first morning drink all in a 24-hour period. Pretty sure I was destined to become an alcoholic. Normal people don't drink that way, but I chased that for a long time, and for a very long time, alcohol worked for me really wonderful. Really wonderful. I had a lot of fun. I went to interesting places, met interesting people, and did interesting things. Some of them resulted in me having an FBI file about that day. You know, a lot of my drinking, I don't remember, because I am a blackout drinker. But I know a lot about my drinking because most of it's a matter of public record. But it worked for a long time. But it started creating problems in my life because I was making decisions based on a great lack of fact. All my decisions were based on twisted perception. And some of the decisions that I were making, although they weren't conscious, I was making those decisions. You see, my drinking, it got in the way of all of my life. See, my wife got in the way of my drinking the way I needed to drink. Not the way I wanted to, but the way I needed to. So she had to go. The kids, they got in the way of my drinking the way I needed to drink. And I abandoned them. My job, my career got in the way. And it went. And I had no idea that's what was going on. I just thought it was bad luck, crappy circumstances. The world is against me. Look at what's been taken away from me now. Not knowing at all what my problem was. And when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I still didn't know what my problem was. I just thought I drank a little too much and, I'll be okay if I stop drinking. I had no idea what my problem was. And when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I always like to say this. I got here with a broken brain, a twisted soul, and 2 imaginary friends. I was a very broken human being. And the only people who cared about me was Bud and Lou. And you couldn't see them or hear them. But they were my buds. And we would sit in the back of AA meetings, and we'd have arguments sometimes. And they'd get rather loud. And old timer would come back, take me outside, smoke a cigarette with me. Just calm me down and take me back into the meeting. And I'm really grateful for that because they lived in the 3rd and 5th traditions, which are so important to me. That they didn't care that I was crazy. They just didn't. They didn't care that I was Jewish. They didn't care about anything other than this one thing. Do you want to not drink today? That's all they cared about. And they lived within that 5th tradition. That every group ought to be a spiritual entity. And they gave that to me. They gave me that spirituality. I didn't get it right away. It took a good year and a half before, my friends left me, and I could really start hearing things, because I couldn't hear anything. It was just too jumbled up. I couldn't even read. My sponsor would read to me every day. And in the beginning, he only read one thing to me. He read me a little portion every day out of a story in the back of the book called It Might Have Been Worse. where it starts out that the idea that alcoholism is a disease of a twofold nature, an allergy to the body and an obsession of the mind, cleared up a number of puzzling questions for me. And it did. It did. There is nothing that I can do about my allergy. I have an allergy. If you have an allergy to strawberries, the only thing that you can do for it is don't eat the damn strawberries. It's the same with alcohol for me, but the obsession of the mind. I kept thinking about a drink, and not because, I don't think so much because I wanted that drink, but because a quack psychiatrist told me that Alcoholics Anonymous would teach me how not to take, or would teach me how to control my drinking. He knew that if he would have told me that you guys would teach me how not to drink one day at a time, first thing I'd do is get drunk. But that idea of controlling, having it be the way it was the first 5 years, wouldn't that be wonderful? But it didn't happen. And it took about 9 months before you guys finally broke down and told me the secret to controlling my drinking. And you called it total abstinence, and I was deeply disappointed. But I had heard enough in Alcoholics Anonymous at that point that I really didn't want to take that drink. I was listening to people standing in the podium who were talking about living just exactly the way I was living in my disease. Homeless. Imaginary friends. Nobody, no family or friends of any kind that gave a rat's ass. And yet they were standing at that podium, and they looked nice, they dressed nice, they talked nice. They didn't smell bad. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, this might happen for me. And there was one meeting where I was sitting in the back of the room, and I had my arms like this, and I'm apparently just rocking back and forth, and saying out loud one more time, God, when do I get to be like these people? And I felt this hand on my shoulder. It was one of the elderly women in our group. And she said, have you had a drink today, Sonny? And I said, no, ma'am. And she says, well, then you're just like us. The only difference is we've been like us a lot longer than you have. And I got what she meant. Give it time. Just give it time. Don't take that drink today. Make that decision again tomorrow, and it'll happen. It'll happen for you. And it happens. And I'm so grateful for it. I was taught many, many things in Alcoholics Anonymous that made absolutely no sense to me. I was told to do this, that, and the other. And the reason for doing it was made absolutely clear the moment I did it. The moment I did it. If they would have told me what the results would be, I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't. I'd say, okay, I got it. That's cool. Fine. All right. But I want to share with you one thing, one story about my journey in the steps, and it was with the third step. And I was really, really trying to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Really trying. But some things weren't getting any better, and some things were actually getting worse. And I went to my sponsor and I told him that. And he just shook his head and he called me an intellectual giant with the common sense of a fence post. And he took me by the hand and he led me over to the corner of his kitchen where he kept his cat box. And he gave me what he called cat shit therapy that day. He bent down and picked up a dried cat turd out of the cat box. He said, hold your hand out. And I held my hand out and he put that dried cat turd in my hand and closed my fingers around it. He said, what do you got in your hand, Kyle? I said, Dan, I got cat shit in my hand. He says, well, how does it feel? I said, it feels crappy. He says, well, why don't you turn it over? And so I did. He says, well, what's in your hand? I said, there's still cat crap in my hand. He says, how does it feel? I said, it still feels crappy. He says, well, why don't you let go of it and go wash your hands? And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I can spend the rest of my life turning things over, and nothing, absolutely nothing will change until I let go of it. And that's hard. That's hard, especially when I'm so used to living a certain way and thinking a certain way and seeing things a certain way. It's really hard. Just turn just that much and see things just that much of a difference. And it changed my life. No, more than that. It didn't change my life. It transformed me. It transformed me from a God-fearing man into a God-loving man who every day I ask my Creator every day, please allow me to be joyfully useful today. Whatever that means. And then I need to pay attention to those opportunities to be joyfully useful. And I get to do that today. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for letting you guys let me talk to you tonight. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, so it is now time for the sobriety countdown. Anyone with more than 30 years? You ready, Carrie?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Anyone with more than 30 years, please stand and tell us how many years sober you are. Go ahead.